was a voodoo doll made to look like Ray's ex-boyfriend, Michael Sherman, aka Sonny, who is also a streamer.
Is this a voodoo doll?
I made a voodoo doll of your ex. I hate that man.
Alyssa! That is the most deranged. Oh my god!
I was in my room watching an ADHD documentary, making the voodoo doll in bed. It's so fugly,
Why
but
does it actually look like him, bro? This is so troll.
Yeah.
I actually am so scared. Like, what if it actually harms him? Should we test it?
Oh my god.
And so that moment got clipped and shared on the podcast X page, and it currently has over 16 million views. With it blowing up for a number of reasons, but among those views was Sonny himself, who notably responded with a long post calling the clip disturbing and saying that he and Ray haven't spoken in 3 years. And with that saying their relationship was toxic on both sides, and while they weren't abusive and they didn't cheat, they were each hurt in their own ways. With him going on to say, and I absolutely understand if all of this behavior is an attempt for you to heal from our toxic past. And then there was some word salad about how she's using her platform to spread hate because of the issues they had in their private relationship, right? Him saying that he wouldn't expect that from her, but people change, I guess. With him then closing, truly hope we can be above the direction in which things are currently going. I have no way of contacting you, but you are more than welcome to message me if you need any more closure. Now, with all that, Ray has not responded directly to what he said or that specific tweet, but one, during a live stream, she said,
I actually am curious how both sides were toxic. Like, the only toxic thing I did was get back with him over and over and over again.
yeah.
And not become a housewife.
And two, it appears that the next chapter of whatever the hell this is will be dropping soon, because her podcast just announced Cheater and Liar episode coming soon. With her and her podcast host then responding to that, and Ray saying, let's have the girl on as a guest, question mark? So yeah, I guess fantastic news for all you messy Marthas that have broken out the popcorn, and love you some internet drama. But then, is YouTube about to make a horrible fucking decision? That's what a lot of people were asking after vidIQ, a tech channel with nearly 2 million subscribers, shared an image on X of YouTube's homepage looking a little different, or with notably there being no view counts or dates on any of the visible videos. And with that saying, the big YouTube is testing out this new look, and it immediately gained traction, with places like Dexerto also reporting this was seemingly happening. And so with that, you ended up with a lot of people sharing their thoughts, with one of the biggest complaints seemingly being the removal of dates, with people saying things like, I don't like that, I want to see how old a video is. View count doesn't bother me, but if I'm looking for up-to-date information on something, I don't want a 6-year-old video, you know? And notably, this wasn't just random internet people responding, you had other creators in the tech space also sharing their 2 cents. For example, you had Marquez Brownlee saying, stop chasing Netflix and just be YouTube. But it turns out that all that reporting was fake, or maybe not fake, inaccurate. With Team YouTube chiming in and clarifying that this new look, it may happen, quote, if viewers are watching YouTube with certain browser extensions enabled, which some people took to mean ad blocks, and YouTube then went on to say that if the issue keeps up after these extensions are disabled, file a report and they'll investigate. But then, in my favorite news of the day, just for the fact that I learned a new number, a Russian court has now fined Google $2.5 decillion for censoring pro-Kremlin propaganda. Which, if understandably, you're like, Phil, what the fuck is a decillion? Let me enlighten you, 1 second. That's 2,5 and then 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Fuck, was that? I don't know if I got it. That's 2,5 and then 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. I blacked out for a second. I think I got it. 32 zeros. We're talking 34 digits in total. Or another way to put it is $2.5 trillion, which then, to do some other fun math, if you take Google's total revenue last year, $306 billion. And for the sake of cleanliness, we say, hey, they're just gonna keep making that amount of money and they're just gonna give literally all of it to Russia. That means it would take them 8 sextillion, 169 quintillion, 934 quadrillion, 640 trillion, 522 billion, 875 million, 816,993 years and 5 months to pay off the fine. I think I blacked out again. And so as far as how this court arrived at just such a freakish number, it has to do with a weird quirk in Russian law. Because originally the fine for censoring 2 Russian outlets' YouTube channels back in 2020, it was just 100,000 rubles. With Google getting more fines since then for banning other outlets, but even taken together, they're just normal penalties. Thing is though, for whatever reason, those fines double every single week. So you give them 4 years, and by the law of exponential growth, you end up with $2.5 decillion. Now, of course, with this, Google doesn't give 2 fucks about it, never mind 2.5 decillion. Or with them saying in their quarterly report yesterday, it doesn't believe that its legal issues in Russia will have a, quote, material adverse effect. And this is its parent company, Alphabet, enjoyed a nice 5% rise in its stock price the same day. And although the company's free services still operate in Russia, Google doesn't show ads to users and recently deactivated AdSense accounts there. With also Russian authorities seizing Google's bank accounts there in response and forcing its local subsidiary to file for bankruptcy. But yeah, main point being, I covered this story specifically for the numbers stuff. With the just general shit show that is our news cycle, this one put a smile on my face, and I hope it did the same for you. But then, taking a quick break from the news, let's talk about something that I love, and that is snacks. Because if you're looking for something new, or you're the type of person who likes to make an adventure out of your food, you're gonna love our fantastic friend and sponsor over at Boxu. Because Boxu is a premium Japanese snack box that works with family-owned businesses across Japan to deliver a new theme of hand-picked treats every month. Now, the first box that you'll get is Seasons of Japan, right? It's packed with the most popular snacks and unique flavors from each season, which I will say, trust me, there are some real gems in here. And actually, I'll show you a couple of my favorites, starting with the Yokohama butter sandwich cookies. These are sneaky good. At first, you're like, oh, I get a little bit of taste of salt, and then, oh my God, so much good sweet flavor. Oh my God, it's like 2 seconds in. This is making me happy to a questionable level. And then the 1-bite sesame mochi. It's gonna sound questionable when I say this, perfectly nutty in my mouth. I mean, we've actually gifted Boxu to friends and family before, and they were blown away. It's a really unique and fun thing, and you kind of bond over tasting all the different snacks and learning about their origins, which is also easy because it comes with a booklet that tells you all about each snack and shows you where they're made. So if you want to treat yourself or others to some authentic Japanese snacks, click the link in the description and use code DeFranco to get $15 off your first Boxu order. Then, Election Day is now less than a week away, but more than 50 million people have already cast their ballots during early voting. And according to the University of Florida's early vote tracker, those millions of early voters are split pretty evenly between registered Democrats and Republicans, around 39% and 36% respectively. And part of the reason we're seeing such high numbers of Republicans voting early this time is in large part due to the fact that Donald Trump has been encouraging his supporters to vote early, which of course is a complete 180 from the 2020 election where he continually attacked the exact same system. But also because of this massive influx of early voters, which has been historic in some of the key swing states, this process hasn't always gone smoothly. Like for example, Pennsylvania found itself at the center of backlash and controversy after a very messy situation that left people in Bucks County waiting for hours, bringing about confusion and frustration, widespread misinformation, and allegations of voter suppression. Now, to be very clear here, Pennsylvania does not technically have early voting. Instead, they have a process that is very different from most states. And actually, it's a system that notably was passed by the state's then Republican legislature back in 2019. And here is how it works. Right? Instead of allowing people to vote early using voting machines like many other states do, Pennsylvania does what's called on-demand mail voting. And to participate in that, registered voters go to their county government offices, request a ballot, and fill out an application. That application is then reviewed on the spot to make sure that the voter is eligible, and once they're approved, the ballot's printed. It's a process that usually takes like 10 to 12 minutes if all goes right. Then, once the ballot is printed, the voter has the choice to fill it out and return it immediately on the same trip, take it home, or have it sent to their house. But when you have this huge surge of voters, 10 to 12 minutes a person, it adds up, especially when given the fact that each election office has just one single printer for the early in-person ballots. And many lack the resources needed to cope with this surge in early voters, with Bucks County officials explaining that they had a fixed number of staff and a fixed budget. And so unsurprisingly, these elections offices were completely overwhelmed and unprepared to deal with the massive influx of people for many of the days that the on-demand process was underway, with offices at times even then turning people away if they got into line too late because staff wouldn't be able to process their applications before closing, telling them to come back again the next day. But of course, big thing, there are only so many next days, and everything really came to a breaking point yesterday, the final day for on-demand mail voting. And so you had these election officials in a super tight spot, right? They only had until midnight to process all the applications for mail-in ballots. And the Pennsylvania Department of State had asked every county to make sure that every voter who was in line by 5 p.m. could at least submit an application for a mail-in ballot. And so to make sure that they could process everyone who got in line by 5 p.m. and still reach that midnight deadline with their limited staff and resources, Bucks County election officials had to make a game time decision. And specifically, what they did is they decided to cut the line of the people who wanted to receive their ballots immediately at 2:45 p.m. But, and this is the key thing here, those people could still apply for ballots. They just couldn't get them at that exact instant, which also meant they couldn't fill them out and return them on the spot. With Bucks County later clarifying on X yesterday that instead they were only given the option to receive their ballot by mail or pick it up later this week. And with that adding, we are aware that due to a miscommunication, individuals in line to apply for on-demand mail-in ballot were briefly told they could not be accommodated. In fact, these voters were given the opportunity to submit mail-in ballot applications on Tuesday, noting that everyone who is still in line by 5 p.m. still was able to apply for their ballot as requested by the Department of State. But all of this, it still made for a very confusing situation with all the chaos and poor communication prompting allegations, mostly from conservatives here, that people were being denied the right to vote early. With Trump supporters and even top Trump campaign officials claiming that officials were cutting the lines early and preventing people from voting. And with that, also alleging that Democrats were suppressing voters and accusing them of interfering in the election to prevent Republicans from voting. We also saw a lot of Trump folks claiming the Democrats were going around pretending to be cops or election officials